this proved to be one of the key elements that make these companies and others to improve dramatically the quality output of their products, cars in the particular case. Now, a lot of American industries, similar industries or other industries, wanted to adopt the same practice, have the processes changed and becoming more efficient, more effective, better overall.
Okay, so is there a change from, is this a new, something new or something that, how it's always linked? Do you think there's a link between talent management and successful change?
Without any doubt. What it is talent management? Talent management, first of all, I belong to this school of thought saying that everyone, literally everyone has a talent. Some of us, the talent is a little bit more useful for XY reasons, without any doubt. Some of us less useful. But all of us, in a sense, we are talented. The problem is that, and this starts with us, we don't realize that.
Okay.
And sometimes we do things that we don't like, and most probably when we do things that we don't like, we cannot demonstrate our talent because we do things that we don't like. So we need to understand and we need to have a common definition about talent. This inclusive definition of talent that I use, it means that
Hi everyone, good day. My name is Udoka once again, and we are back here on Skillfully Spoken. This is brought to you by ProBody. Today, in today's rapidly evolving world of work, change is constant, but transformation only happens when people are at the center. In this episode of Skillfully Spoken, we are joined by Professor Alexandros. He's a specialist in organizational change and behavior. He's going to discuss about how companies can create sustainable growth by empowering their people. We'll look at human dynamics and how it changes, how to shape behavior at scale, and why talent development is your biggest growth strategy. Whether you're leading a team, navigating change yourself, or helping shape workplace culture, this episode will give you the mindset and tools to be a catalyst for meaningful transformation. Professor Alexandros is a transformational strategist and culture coach who has worked across sectors and helping organizations navigate that change by unlocking their potential. And not just potential, but potential within their talent, potential within their people. He's a professor of human resource and management and organizational behavior, as well as the head of work and organizational group at Loughborough Business University. That's at Loughborough University in the United Kingdom. He's also a visiting professor at various institutions around the world. He's specialized in international and strategic HRM leadership. He's looked at applied neuroscience, performance, and reward management. Amongst other things, he has various articles out there. In August 2020, the Academy of Management awarded him with the Benedictine University Award of Outstanding Research Award on Ethical Issues in Consulting. So he's been around for a long while. If you've ever wondered how to lead change, develop talent, and make groups stick, this one's for you. Professor Alexandros, you're welcome to our set today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation, for the opportunity to speak about these things that I love primarily and I care, of course. My experience the last 20 years or so helps me to have a clear approach on these things. Of course, this approach is not static, it's developing every time. Every time is informed by new insights, new ideas, new concepts, new research evidence that we have around organizations and people. And this is a very interesting topic for your audience, I think, to understand more, and why not to learn through this interview that we're going to have today.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. So we'll take it. Why people-led change works. We are looking at why people-led change works. What does people over process mean? Because today our topic, we are looking at the topic people over process, driving sustainable change that transforms, right? So what does people over process, what does it mean to you?
Okay, first of all, we need to understand that when we say about organizational change, change is everywhere. First of all, in our societies, in our cultures, everywhere. But we focus on organizations.
Yep.
We need to clarify this context because I'm going to talk about this. Of course, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the things that I'm going to say can be applied in the wider society. Without any doubt.
Okay.
It is critical to have a focus in organizations. So we need to understand something, that when we say about organizations, by default, we mean about three things that are very, very important. An organization is considered as an organization if it has a scope,
Okay.
a purpose, a strategy, we call it in management
Okay.
studies. The second thing that it is very important about organizations is its knowledge. We call it technology overall, but technology is actually the application of knowledge in practice. Everything is technology, like everything is knowledge. So two
Okay.
things are very important, plus the third one, people. Only these three things can define an organization: strategy, scope, knowledge, technology, and people.
Okay.
Now, processes are very important in order to have a system organized. So, for example, if the two of us, we have an organization, we are business partners, we need to organize among ourselves what we need to do. And we need to put that in a particular order. This is a kind of a process. So let me clarify that we need processes as
Okay.
well as we need people to run these processes.
Okay.
Now, from time to time, for reasons of efficiency, of effectiveness, of new things that are coming, we need to change these processes. We need to shift it. Not all of them necessarily, but some of them. So this is exactly where change is hidden. It's hidden in processes. So both people and processes are very important for an organization. Now, processes are things that are not tangible, are things that they don't have a soul, they don't have emotions, but they are there absolutely necessary in order to have an organization. People are those that they are going to apply
Make it work.
these
Yeah.
changes in the processes. Okay, this is why we need to focus on people in order to change the processes. It is wrong when we focus only on the processes, ignoring people. And this will be my dominant message for today's interview.
Okay. Good. Thank you. So my thoughts based on what you've said, we focus more on people than processes, right? I don't
We
know if
need to focus more on people
yeah.
in order to have the processes
Processes.
changed and becoming
Okay.
more efficient, more effective, better overall.
Okay. So is there a change from is this a new something new or something that how it's always been done?
No, it is not something new, obviously. It is something that we knew since the beginning of
Okay.
understanding about change in organizations. The problem is that it is easier to change a process rather
Then
than to convince someone to change the process. So it is easier to focus on the process, ignoring people, rather than to focus on people that can help me better change the process or apply the new process that I would like to apply in the organization. And there is a reason behind that. Because we, people, as human beings, we have an inner logic. Inner logic, it means that we are different, first of all. As I like to say in my modules, in my lectures, we are on this planet, we are all equals, but we are not the same. We are different. So, based on that, we have different understandings of things, different things that motivate us, different things that make us happy, different things that we are interested in.
okay.
So, we cannot easily modelize human behavior
Mm.
because of this inner logic. And this is where the problem starts. Sometimes it is really challenging, it is really difficult for a manager, for a leader of an organization to convince people to follow a change. This is why a lot of them, and this is the mistake that they do, they focus on the process, ignoring people, because it is challenging to focus on people.
Wow. Just my thoughts. Because of the way you discuss about this, why is this something you enjoy doing? Because it is something you've been doing for a long while. What prompted you into
Good
this into
question.
this
Good
uh,
question. Some people they may say that I'm a masochist. No, I'm not. Look, when I finished my PhD was back in 2005. It was a complete technical PhD in operations, and it was that time that I realized that all of these things in theory work, but nothing can happen if we ignore the human side of an organization. So this was for me a great motivator to start
okay.
focusing my interest on people, and
Okay.
primarily started with psychology, organizational psychology, social psychology, in order to
Mm.
understand how people can help apply these things. And to be honest with you, I liked it. I'm really, one of the things that motivates me personally is to see when people understand what I'm suggesting to them,
Yeah.
to see them apply this. And what is the great reward for me is to see that after the application, after my suggestions, and after they apply my suggestion, they bring some actually change, good change inside their departments, their organizations, their units. So this is why I like this. It is difficult though. It is challenging, I need to say. It is not easy at all. And the reason is because I don't have the magic recipe, I don't have the magic stick that I can apply everywhere and I can bring easy change to every single organizational context. Nobody has it, by the way. But what we have instead, we have our ability to communicate with people, to understand people, and to try to see how we can engage them in this that we call as a change process.
And from there, what it means is that, because I understand, I'm getting this clarity. So from what you do, so there's like an iteration. So we try this, it works well, or it doesn't work well. We can now go back and improve on it. Say, you know what, we've engaged
It's a
people.
continuous process, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Great. So based on this, how does culture influence the success or failure of change efforts? We're trying to change. Yeah. Trying to change within our organization. We're trying to initiate a change. How much of influence does culture have on this?
Without any doubt, a lot. As I like to say, if you ignore culture, culture will ignore you back. Meaning that if you do not take into consideration values, ethics system, overall, the way that the people behave and interact within a social context, a social entity like an organization, then you have done the first fundamental mistake not to be able to apply whatever you would like to apply. Culture, therefore, influences a lot. Now, what people need to do? First of all, they need to understand the basic assumptions, the basic values of the cultural context that they would like to change. Why? Because these basic values, basic assumptions will clarify in a great degree what are the things that can be easily applied, what are the things that we need to be more careful about. Can I give you an example?
Yes, I actually wanted to ask you how that works in reality.
Back in 70s, the two very important automobile industries in Japan, I don't know if I can refer to brands at the moment. I don't want to advertise. Can I?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to refer. They have applied a very interesting management approach in order to bring improvements in the daily production system. In management studies, this approach was called the quality circles. What are these? The quality circles were groups of workers gathered together on voluntary basis at the end of the working week. Voluntary basis, it means without receiving extra money, extra reward or whatever, discussing about problems occurred during the week and suggesting solutions to the management of the plant. In Japan, this proved to be one of the key elements that make these companies and others to improve dramatically the quality output of their products, cars in the particular case. Now, a lot of American industries, similar industries or other industries, wanted to adopt the same practice, so to bring a change, improving the outcome, the quality of the outcome. So they have decided to do the same. So what they did, they apply something that I call as the copy-paste, taking from technology, the copy-paste approach. So they copied from Japan and they paste it to a to US context. Yes, completely different culture, obviously. What happened over there? Huge disaster, because people were not willing to participate on voluntary basis. So what this indicates to me, that those people that they wanted to bring a change to the process ignored culture, and they tried to impose something that was quite antithetical to the culture of the US. The same happened when the same tactic transferred from the US this time to the UK and then to the continental Europe. The same reaction, negative reaction, because of the culture, which means that, again, if we ignore the culture will ignore us back.
Sure.
We should never forget about this. So the suggestion is understand the culture of your organization, of the industry, of the country, of the national or international context that you operate, because this understanding can give you a lot of possibilities to apply and the way to apply the changes that you would like to.
Wow. So what you're saying in essence is, don't just copy and paste. You must look for what is relevant.
You need to copy, adjust, paste.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That makes a whole lot of sense. From this, what are the early indicators that an organization is ready or not ready for transformation?
Good. Very good question. Research evidence vary here. An organization that has used to change for a long period of time, obviously, is much more prepared to initiate change, to accept more changes coming. Organization that it is more static in a sense, trying to avoid changes, try to avoid new situations coming. Definitely, this organization has less chances to adjust to a new transformation, as you said. Having said that,
Is this from a level of executive level or just from a people level?
it's everywhere. Usually, it's everywhere. Again, if we think that organizations are hierarchical entities, so this means that someone at the top of the hierarchy needs to take, or a group of people need to take decisions. Obviously, uh, if the organization doesn't like to change, this will come as a message from the top to the bottom of the organization. Usually, this is what is happening. And obviously, executives, senior managers, senior leaders are those that are primarily responsible for that. Paradoxically, what my experience tells me is that a lot of these people, they don't understand what they do. So on the one hand, they support change. On the other hand, their behavior overall does not create the appropriate environment for change. But in contrast, put people in a very stable route, in a very stable path, in a comfort zone, as we say in psychology. And most of the times, they don't understand what they do. This is why it is a paradox.
So how do we know? At what point do you know that this organization is ready for change? Is there anything that you can show that says, you know what, it looks like we are ready for change?
Look, there is no any, to the extent that I know, to my knowledge, there is no any clear indication. As I said, imagine that organizations are alive entities like you and me. Okay, you don't know. Maybe when I was 20, 25 years old, I was more ready to change. But in comparison, now that I'm 50 years old, the situation is much more difficult. The same applies to organizations. So it depends on the timing. It depends on the context. It depends on a lot of different things. So it is not easy to say. However, after observing an organization, you can say more or less whether this organization, it is more ready to accept changes in comparison to another organization that is not ready yet. We can say something like this. But again, there are a lot of variances on that because the same organization that is ready to change, then in another period of time, it will be proved very antithetical to change. We have examples like this from very well-known brands that they have changed initially to a completely different thing, but a couple of decades after, they deny to change again, which is quite paradox, but can be explained. Because organizations are alive systems. This is something that we need to understand. Organizations are not the premises, the buildings, the technology, all of these not alive things. But when we say organization, we mean people. People that they coordinate, they collaborate, they develop synergies in order to do something. This is what an organization is.
Okay.
This is why we say that organizations are alive creatures.
So we can't say it's because they're necessarily a large organization, a small organization. It could just be, like as you said, there's a time in their life where they are ready for.
Without any doubt, the smallest, easiest to change because it is more flexible, without any doubt. The largest, the more difficult. Again, depends on what type of a change you mean. If it is, for example, to apply a new technology, a new software system in the organization, this is a different type of a change in comparison to a change to change our strategy, for example, to develop a completely new product or to penetrate another market in business organizations. It's different types of change that we need to take into consideration. Even if we change the leader of an organization, it is considered a change. Think about it. In a lot of cases, big organizations, they change the CEO, the chief executive officer. And this is a change by itself. Why? Because normally or usually what is happening, a new CEO comes and the new CEO brings new ideas, new strategies, new things that he or she wants to apply. And by default, all of these things is a change for the organization. So it depends on what kind of a change we're talking here. In the theory of change, we have two types of change. We have the planned and unplanned change. The planned change are the things that we know that are coming. So in a sense, we can prepare ourselves. And of course, there are unplanned. Usually the planned change, it is linear, step by step. So we have the time to prepare ourselves, to change our processes, to train the people, blah, blah. But what if we have an unplanned change, a radical change? We have a very recent example, all of us in our heads, the pandemic.
Yeah.
The pandemic brought a radical, unplanned change in the way primarily that we work, all of us, in the majority of the cases, not all of them, but in the majority of the cases. We needed massively to start doing things remotely.
Yeah, true.
This was a big challenge for organizations, and especially for those that they didn't have any other choice, like, for example, the organization that I work, the universities, that we needed to deliver lectures online, we needed to develop the skills, the capabilities, the technologies,
Yeah.
but we did it. But why we did it? Because we didn't have any other choice.
You're forced
It
to
was
change.
it was
Yeah.
it was a push from the macro context of the environment to
Yeah,
adjust.
true.
Is this what is happening in all cases? Of course not. Can we have something like this in all cases? Of course not. But I think it's a good example. The pandemic is a good example that proved that we can adjust fast as human beings.
Yeah,
But
true.
it was more in quotations violent adjustment because we didn't have any other choice.
You need
Think
that
about
choice.
it.
Driving change, what do you think should be the key things that an organization puts to encourage change to happen?
In the last approximately 15 years of my life, I take into consideration a lot neuroscience and applied neuroscience. Neuroscience is the science of the brain. So, why I bring this into the discussion? Because neuroscientists help us to understand more or less how the brain works, which
Okay.
means that we can understand now, in a great degree, the origins of human behavior, why we behave in a particular way. One of these behaviors that we have is resistance to change. We have a natural tension to resist to whatever new. Think about it. And I ask all of your audience to think about it. Even if a change is positive, sometimes I say, imagine that you enter your house and your spouse, your partner, or your family has prepared for you a surprise birthday party, for example, and invited all of your friends, and you unlock the door, it is dark, you switch on the light, and they say surprise, your first reaction is to go back, to be scared, because you didn't expect that. So even in a positive change, so a birthday surprise party is a positive change, our first reaction is to
Go
go
back.
back, and to react in a quite negative way, which means that biologically, at least the way that I understand it, we are designed to be very careful with new situations. The
Okay.
brain, the human brain, does not like uncertainty. The human brain likes certain things. And now think, change by default has or includes a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things that we don't know. In order to make a long story short, what organizations they need to do, what is the starting point, I think? The organizations, when they decide, because some changes cannot be avoided, when they decide upon a change, the first thing that they need to have in their minds is, how am I going to support my people? Do you know why? Because a lot of times we say, you announce the change, you try to give the rationale of the change, which is fine, of course. You have reasons of the change. You know that it's great benefit for the organization to apply this change.
Yeah.
But nobody cares. I'm so cynical about that. Do you know what is happening? During the announcement of the change, everybody will have in their minds what this means to me,
To me.
not to the organization. I don't care about the organization this time. What
Yeah.
this means to me, to my work, to my job security, to my salary, to the way that I work, all of these things will be there at that moment, confusing us. And what will happen? We are going to be skeptical in the best case scenario about the change. Let's see how they are going to apply this. I have seen that happening many times, especially with restructuring programs in organizations. Canceling departments, merging units, departments, etc. All the time, people, oh my God, what we're going to do right now, what this means to me. So the suggestion is, try from scratch to show that you are going to support people. There are a lot of suggestions over there how you can do that. But the point is that you need to recognize that people will resist, will react negatively because they need to find answers about themselves at that moment. So what you need to do, you need to recognize this first. Second, to show to them in a way that you are going to support them in this process. Some some organizations, they do so. Some others, though, they prefer to ignore that.
Let's move on.
And sometimes, I'm really, I don't feel very well. I don't want to use another word. When I hear people saying, the leaders of an organization, come on, this is obvious that needs to happen. People are professionals and they need to understand that. No, they're not. And this is the mistake that we do. So this is what neuroscience can bring. That neuroscience has brought us closer to our nature and what is happening inside us when we are exposed to things like that and why we react in the way that we react. So neuroscience tries to say to us, be careful how you're going to say these things, what kind of support, because at the end of the day, this is what matters initially, at least.
I get what you're saying. It makes a whole lot of sense. So let me give you an idea that I've had also. I've seen very big teaching hospitals saying, you know what, we need to reduce our admin staff. We want to focus more on the healthcare and others, right? And in doing this, you find out that you lay off a lot of staff and you start looking for skilled people to hire to fill in some other roles, right? My thoughts in some of this, I'm just giving an example of what my thoughts are based on what you said. The organization could say, you know what, we need to make these roles redundant. However, there are some roles that are here that are technical. Are you willing to go through a training process to become that kind of technical? I don't know if that happens in organizations.
Yeah, it's happening. Rules, look, we need to understand the reason of rules. As I like to say, rules is a human product, like a computer machine, like a car. Rules is a human product, an intangible product. But rules are absolutely necessary. Why? Because we need them in order to coexist in societies, in groups together. Imagine a society without rules. Jungle, I think. You understand what I'm saying? So we need rules. Now, organizations, usually they use rules in order to keep the system under order. The problem is that humans, this is another thing that is coming mainly from neuroscience. We have this natural tension to routinize rules. What this means? This means that when someone will explain to me a rule in my work, and I can understand the reason, I don't have a problem to apply it. But after a little while, and after I have applied this rule for a long period of time, I will start internalize the rule and then externalize it in my own way.
Okay.
Let me give you an example with driving a car. It is usually a question that I do to my students. I say, how many of you know how to drive? And, lots of people, they raise their hands, especially in the executive programs. And I say to them, okay, how many of you have passed the traffic light with a red traffic light? More than 70-80% of them, they say that we have done this. And I say, what is happening here? You forgot the rule. The rule is global and it is stable. Red we stop, green we go.
Yeah.
There is no way to forget this rule. It is clear. It is a proof, I think, and this is where the moment when people start to post-rationalize their actions, their behavior. Alex, there are no cameras around, or there is no police, or there is no coming from the rest of the light, or from the left or the right of the crossroad, so there was no any risk, etc. What happened at that moment is the moment that people, they have externalized the rule after they applying the rule for a long period of time in their own manner, in their own way. Then I ask them, do you remember when you were first start to drive a car, inexperienced drivers, how often you tend to break that rule? More than 90% of them, they say to me, no, we didn't break that rule. It is exactly, I understand the rule. I understand the usefulness of the rule, obviously, in that case. However, this automatic process of internalization and routinization of the rule is coming, no matter what. This is why organizations, we need to be very careful with rules. The suggestion here is that we need to focus on the rules that they really matter. Always I say few simple rules is what you need in order to run your business, in order to run your teams, your project teams. If you try to manage people by the book, as we like to say, it is a recipe for catastrophe. Instead, what you need to do is to recognize, remind some very important rules to people, but not the most important, and try to manage them based on that. Changing the rules now, yes, sometimes we need to change the rule. The same principle applies. We need to explain the logic of change, but also we need to be there. Because even if the people understand the change of the rule, sooner or later, this rule will be routinized. We need to be there to remind this rule to people.
Thank you. That's very, very insightful. I guess it's something that we need to think deeply about. So how do leaders keep people engaged during this kind of uncertain or disruptive transitions?
For me, the best way, if you
And
were
we're looking at it because you said it could be positive or could be negative. So that we don't always look at this change like just from a negative point of view also.
Yeah, of course. If someone would observe the situation 40, 50 years ago, most probably would realize that during that period of time, especially in businesses, but also in organizations in general, we're looking for for a balance, for stability, meaning that the leader's effort that period of time was mainly to keep the system in a stable situation in order the system to be able to produce an output. Either we're talking about products or services or whatever. Nowadays, the situation is different. So the suggestion now is that in order to keep people engaged around change, I need not to target on stability, but I need to target on change. What this means, I like the following suggestion. I like to keep the system in a permanent, turbulent situation. I give an example on that, a metaphor. What is the metaphor that I use here? Is the cardiograph. Imagine the cardiograph. It goes like this.
Yeah.
And if it goes like this, it's good because it means that your heart is beating properly and you're alive. If it is a line, you know what it means.
Yeah.
So you need to keep your organization as a cardiograph in a not extreme, but in a sense in a frequency of turbulences.
Yeah, that constant cycle.
Because this is what will make people much more prepared for a change. And this is suggested not by me. There are, brilliant minds. One of my favorite authors, Nikolaos Taleb, and in his book Anti-Fragile, suggests that. He brings a very nice example. He brings a very nice example of two brothers in London. One is a banker and the other one is a taxi driver. The banker, very well educated, having a stable job, stability for a long period of time, a lot of money, very well and wealth life. The taxi driver, instead, in contrast, is exactly what we mean, living in a turbulent situation all the time. One day, no money at all. The very next day, a lot of money. The third day, so. And it goes like this all the time. But then Nikolaos Taleb says, crisis comes, and the banker loses his job. And the rhetoric question that he puts is, who of the two has more chances to survive during this crisis? And I think the answer is obvious, the taxi driver. Not because he's better, not because her skills are better, because for a long period of time, he was in this turbulent situation. This is exactly what I'm suggesting. Can you keep your teams, your organizations, your department in this instability instead of targeting find stability? This is the key, I think, in order to accept change easier and to reduce resistance to change by people.
Do you want to give examples of how that can work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Unfortunately, not. Do you know why? Because I can say what I'm doing in my case.
Yeah, okay.
As a manager, partially I'm a manager as well. I'm not only an academic researcher, but since I do so, doesn't mean that can be applied.
Like, yeah, okay, I get that.
Okay, that's a problem, and sometimes I avoid this because I pass the wrong message. The message
just go and do copy.
The message is not to do what I do.
Yeah,
because every single case is different. Have that in your mind.
Yeah.
We cannot easily copy paste things.
Okay.
Based on the situation, you need to find the way.
For you.
Sometimes, for example, I will tell you what I do. Sometimes when people they come asking me solutions to their problems, I avoid suggesting to them what to do. I say, what do you suggest? Although I know the answer. It's very, very tempting to say the answer and get rid of them off my back, But I don't. I say to them, what do you suggest? And they say to me, I don't know. Okay, go back, think, and come back to me with a suggestion. Instead of bringing the system instability, this person is always there and can give us always a solution. This creates the line that I'm suggesting you. And when the time will come, these people to actually think for themselves, they are not trained to do so. Because all the previous period of time, you offer them the solutions. Now, be careful. Someone that can hear us right now can say, no, Alex, in my case, I cannot do so because if I do let them do whatever they think, I'm going to lose time, blah, blah, blah. This is exactly what I told you before.
Yeah.
Case by case, we have different things. I just gave you a very small example of what I do. But I do this because I know that I can do that.
Yeah.
Without a great risk behind.
So you have to just find what works for you, like you said before. What works for you? Adapt everything to your system, to your culture.
Remember what I said at the beginning. We don't have magic recipes in management of people. We don't. If we were magic recipes, Doko, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be there as well asking me these questions. We would have answers already to use, but we don't.
Is there a link? Do you think there's a link between talent management and successful change?
without any doubt. What it is talent management? Talent management, first of all, I belong to this school of thought saying that everyone, literally everyone has a talent. Some of us, the talent is a little bit more useful for X, Y reasons, without any doubt. Some of us less useful. But all of us, in a sense, we are talented. The problem is that, and this starts with us, we don't realize that.
Okay.
And sometimes we do things that we don't like, and most probably when we do things that we don't like, we cannot demonstrate our talent because we do things that we don't like. So we need to understand and we need to have a common definition about talent. This inclusive definition of talent that I use, it means that all people, they can help for a change. Definitely there are some with some technical talents that they can help us more depending on the case, of course. There are others with more soft skills talent that can also help us. But bottom line is that people, every single one of them, can help us, depending on the case, I repeat myself, for applying the change. So there is a connection between talented people and application of change.
So are you referring to, so that means we can have what they call change agents?
Yeah, we can use, correct. We can use some of them as change agents, as someone that can influence others in a positive way. These people usually they have some skills. They are opinion leaders. They have the ability to communicate things better. Without doubt, yes, we can rely on them without any doubt, in some cases at least. But these people are not enough. Have that in your mind. We need also people to support the technical aspect of the change. Don't forget also that when we say change as a process, we need time. This time we need frequent support to the people, to all of the people that we collaborate with, and we try to convince them to change. Okay, so practically we don't need just only change agents. We need a lot of different categories of people that they can help us during the different stages of applying the change.
Thank you. That's so far for everyone that's been listening to us on the show with Professor Alexandros. He's been leading organizational change for years, and he's been taking us through the topic people over processes, trying to drive sustainable change that transforms organizations or even transforms people. Some organizations that are people powered, everything is driven by people that are very powerful
With
in running
okay,
organizations,
okay,
right?
okay,
Whereas there are some other organizations that are driven by processes. This is
okay.
how we
Yeah,
always
I
do it.
understood. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we get to a place where we can put a balance in it?
Again, I don't think personally that we can find a balance. If the organization, I can imagine of organizations with very strong personalities and as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. All of us, we have very well-known names in our heads. It is very difficult to go against the power of these people.
Okay.
So it is very difficult, almost impossible to bring this one that you have called as a balance. Other organizations that they are more collective entities. So it's not only the leader, the entrepreneurial, mind, but also everyone. I think that in both cases, we can find pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. But to be honest to you, and to the extent that I know, it is difficult to find the balance between the two. And I will explain why. The main reason is what we have suggested before, culture. In a power organization that is based on the power of the leader and the leaders, there is a very strong culture already established in that organization. So this culture is difficult to change. And especially the more the people remain in their positions at the top level, the more difficult to change.
True.
In the other side of the organization that we have, the organization that is based more on processes, it is very difficult suddenly a very thoughtful leader to come and bring a change because the culture is also antithetical. Now, having said that, we need to have in our mind that culture also can change. However, this time the cultural change, especially of an organized entity like an organization, of a social entity like an organization, we need more time. Don't expect that the cultural change will come from one day to another. No. We need years of operating in a different mode in order to change the culture. So, having said that, in order to make a long story short, it is for me very challenging to find the balance. Usually, the dominant culture will prevail and will define the way that an organization understands and applies change.
Okay. So we go back to the topic. How do we drive sustainable change to transform and improve businesses today?
As I said, we start with the people. You need to start and finish with the people. It is easy to find the logic for the change. Usually in the 90% of the cases, I don't want to be absolute here, but in the 90% of the cases, there is a logic. But you need to start with people. I can give you an example of my personal experience. Just maybe through that example, I will make your audience understand better how you can drive change. It was in the previous university that I was working. My position was also quite high, middle level management in the university, but top level in the department. So I took the responsibility for changing the performance evaluation system, make it more effective, make it more targeted, especially for researchers. This actually happened 10 years ago, approximately. I remember that I had two choices. Choice number one, to ignore people, to try to see what other universities or academic departments apply, copy paste it, adjust it a bit, and then say to them, look, this is what we have.
True.
But I didn't do so. I prefer the difficult way. What was the difficult way? I said that how can I minimize resistance? How can I convince people? How I can drive them towards the change? The answer is one and only, to involve them in the change, not to ignore them. So what I did, I remember I was knocking a lot of doors, arranging meetings. During that period of time, 10 years ago, we didn't used to have a lot of online meetings, the truth is.
Everyone should,
So I needed to go there and have an appointment, a meeting in their office. And actually I said, okay, I'm not going to ask you to come in my office. I'm going to come to your office in order to show that, look, I'm the one that I ask rather than I tell you what to do, but I ask you to contribute. Also, this was symbolically, this was important. So I was taking a lot of my personal time, asking them their opinion of how do you think that the new system needs to be. Tell me about your research. Tell me about what should be the criteria through which we need to evaluate. During the discussion, what I was doing, I was trying to explain to them the need of a new system. What could be the benefits for them, for example. How the new system could support what they do. What could be the positive results. So I was trying to focus on the positive aspect of the change. And at the same time, making them understand that this would be much more fair for everybody, to feel that the system is transparent and fair. I dedicated a lot of time. I spent hours of discussions, keeping notes all the time, and then using, of course, I didn't, went back to my office meditating how the system would be. No, I took some other ideas from other universities. Of course, we are living in a world but what I did, I will start developing the system that I believe that it is better for our case, putting inside their system a lot of their suggestions. And then I organized the meeting. A lot of people, they say to me, Alex, you need to ask them for a meeting. No, I said, oh, no, I'm not going to do so. I'm going first to go and meet them in person. Not all of them. I couldn't actually meet every single one of them, but 70% of the people. This is why I spend a lot of time. And then I ask for a meeting. And do you know what I observed? In that meeting, I present the new system. I explain again the needs, why we need the new system, and I present it. Do you know what I observed? A lot of people, they were start smiling on, or I have seen in their face the satisfaction. He took into consideration our suggestions. Not everything. Don't misunderstand me. We couldn't take into consideration everything. We cannot satisfy everyone, but a lot of them, the truth is. And not only that, some people always this is the case. Some people will resist no matter what.
True.
Okay, let's admit that. But what happened, and this was also another thing that I think it's very interesting. It was very interesting. Those people that they have seen their contribution, they came as a support of my suggestion against the resistors.
True.
So practically I have a lot of people over there supporting at the end of the day, the majority of them, what would like to do right now. But again, as I said, for me, we need to start with people. We need to find a way to involve people in the process. Now, the process of involvement varies from organization to organization. I need to be honest. Okay, this is why that I say that we cannot taking something for granted and apply it everywhere. We need to be very, very careful with this.
That's very, 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 very important. Ensuring that people are part of the entire process, getting their buy-in all through. And as you said, some people will surely resist. You can't stop that. Some people will always resist, but that's it. Yep. So, final question. Final question. It's been an interesting discussion with you so far. There's so much I've gotten to understand here about how to drive change. Final question. If you could offer one principle for leading sustainable change, what would it be? One principle to lead sustainable change, what would it be?
I need to repeat myself. Make people involved. Involve them in the process. I don't know how difficult this will be from case to case. I bet that it is.
Yeah.
But this is the key principle for me. When I say involve into the process, I'm not suggesting, I need to be careful here. I'm not suggesting to involve them in the decision whether we are going to apply the change. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not, I'm not flying into the clouds. What I'm suggesting here is that the decision is that there is a rationale about why we need to change. Now we need to find a way to involve people.
During the process.
Involve people in the process of applying the change. And doing so, the priority is to support them. So involve people and support them. That's the two things that I would suggest. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations, they don't do so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, and when I say organizations, I'm referring to top management, they don't want to put themselves in this challenge with people. What they do, either avoid to involve them,
Yeah.
or they do not provide the appropriate information, or they ignore to support them. They ignore them completely in supporting their needs during the and the outcome is, of course, resistance, disappointment, dissatisfaction, turnover, high turnover. We have also measured this and we have found this. Paradoxically, top management keep up saying, but why? But why? Well, it's not why, because all of these things have happened. Because we ignore them. We ignore them, so people will ignore you back.
Yeah.
And I keep up repeating, we're not living in a period of time that people will easily follow, no matter what, blindly. No.
Yeah. True.
People think about it. On average, not everywhere, I need to be careful here, but on average, we are much better educated in comparison to previous generations. One. Two, we have faster access to information, therefore knowledge, definitely, in comparison to previous generations. Number three, and maybe the most important, we have higher expectations in comparison to previous generations.
Yeah.
Just, if the two of us, if we think about our parents and compare our parents with ourselves, automatically we are going to see that these three things apply. Automatically, tick, tick, tick. And this is happening in the majority of the people. So right now, we have to deal with a workforce that they are much more educated, much better educated, more aware about things and stuff. And of course, they have the ability to judge better and make better decisions about themselves. And since you're referring to talents, it is easier nowadays, especially people that they know their talents, to say bye-bye, to leave the organization. Not everywhere, I repeat myself, I don't want to be misunderstood, but in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been a very, very interesting discussion. Let me know, it's not how I thought it would be, but there is so much insights that has come.
Thank you.
Come from this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your perspective.
Thank you.
This has been very, very interesting. And
just if you allow me to say one more thing.
Okay.
We have that book over there. I can point.
Yeah,
which is Neuroscience for Leaders, with my co-author, Nikolaos Dimitriadis. And this book, we are very proud of this book. We suggest all of these things over there. This book has been translated in a lot of different languages, Chinese in both dialects, Japanese, Vietnamese, Portuguese, Greek. Of course, the original version is in English in 2020. This is the second edition, and we prepare the third edition as well. And this book is targeting practitioners, managers, people that they manage, they lead people either in small units or in larger departments. And this book tries to make these leaders more thoughtful around change, around leading change and leading organizations overall.
So the name of the book is what? Neuroscience for Leaders, right?
Neuroscience for Leaders, yes, by Gökhan Page. By
Gökhan Page, okay. And the authors are what again? So that
the author is myself,
okay, and
my co-author is Nikolaos Dimitriadis.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm very sure a lot of people will look at it, and because and I should be looking at getting one also, because we need it. We need way to plan. We need way to work with people. Thank you so much for coming out.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invitation. Hopefully we have given good insights to your audience.
Yeah.
Feel free to do that again.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so how can people get in touch with you?
I'm in LinkedIn. You
Yeah,
can easily find me and connect with me
yeah,
with my
okay,
name. You can find my mail also. It's
okay.
the professional email. I mean, in
No, no
University
problem.
of Loughborough Business School. But I prefer more the LinkedIn because
LinkedIn.
it is easier to be connected. Okay.
Thank you very much. So if you enjoy this episode, please share it with your friends. Share it.
Oh, I will. I
Leave
will.
us for our viewers. Like, subscribe, and don't forget to follow us. We're on all our social media
And I need to
streams.
congratulate you for your efforts and what you do. Very good.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much, and looking forward to having much more discussions with you later
Yep.
on.
Feel free. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Thank